This is When Science Speaks, a new web series profiling innovative and interesting people working in science and technical fields, from academia to industry to the nonprofit world. We explore how to be a powerhouse advocate for science and your research, how to advance your career in meaningful ways that make you happy, and how to push back on the ongoing assault on science and other related issues of interest happening in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Bayer, and you are tuned to When Science Speaks. This episode of the show is sponsored by the free One for the Week email newsletter, which delivers one high-impact communication resource to inboxes each week you can immediately apply to take your communication skills to the next level. Want one piece of communication and persuasion insight that can be put to use right away to get your voice heard, more effectively lead your team, or advance your organizational priorities? Join the 800 subscribers of the One for Week newsletter by going to whensciencespeaks.com/one for the week. That's whensciencespeaks.com/ONEFOR the week, one for the week. I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Fabricio Costa to the show today. Fabricio is a science and technology leader and data science enthusiast known for successfully identifying and developing revenue producing opportunities in the technology, life sciences, and drug development markets. Fabricio is a serial entrepreneur and executive, currently responsible for the marketing, business development, business intelligence, and sales at Modak Analytics, which is a data solutions company enabling enterprises to manage and utilize their data landscape effectively using machine learning techniques to transform how structured and unstructured data is prepared, ingested, consumed, and shared. Fabricio has served as an executive at Apple, Accenture, and a senior contributor at Forbes magazine. He earned his Ph.D. at the University of São Paulo in Brazil, where his research focused on epigenetic and genetic differences in cancers to identify new treatments and biomarkers, and received his postdoc at Harvard Medical School in molecular neurogenetics. He also has an MBA in entrepreneurship and healthcare. Welcome to the show, Fabricio.
Oh, thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure being here again.
It was about 2 years ago when we first had you on the show, and a lot has happened since then in your professional career. And I want to get right to it. You have actually a fascinating career journey from your
Thank you.
undergrad. You started undergrad, did your PhD, both in Brazil. You also co-founded and were CEO of a startup back in 2000 to create awareness about the biotech and genomics revolution that was happening worldwide at that time, just beginning to your innovative work at Northwestern, your role at Apple Labs, and launching additional startups along the way. I'd like you to start by sharing with listeners how you've navigated this diverse, multinational, actually, career.
Thank you for the intro. It's so nice of you, and it's nice to be here again after all that craziness that happened to the world. Yes, I started my career as an academic I wanted to be working with molecular genetics. I did a PhD, postdoctoral training at Harvard. But dealing with scientists in academia, it's a very frustrating sometimes. So I changed a lot. The company that I co-founded in 2000 was a complete disaster because nobody wanted to hear about the Human Genome Project. Everybody wanted to do their high school to go to the best colleges and best universities, like in the US. Like they have something similar to the test that you guys have here in the US, and everybody was focusing on that. Nobody wanted to know about science at all, and was terrible. And I learned a lot. So yes, I did the academic part of it. Frustration came, and then I started companies. As one of them was sold in 2016, raised money, and also I went through the Apple Labs, very interesting program from Apple that's still ongoing. Got a job at Accenture, this big consultancy company. And then I was talking to a lot of people during this time frame, middle of last year, when I met the president and CEO of Modak Analytics that deals with data science.
Let me ask you, Fabricio, as you were transitioning from these different opportunities, were there qualities or was there knowledge or certain resources that you think helped you along the way to be able to move successfully through that journey so far?
First of all, is the frustration sometimes that academia is always about getting grants and surviving in this hyper competitive environment. Sometimes you have to try new things, and that's what I did. I started consultancy on the side. I started companies, and then I ended up learning a lot of about business that I didn't have in my background. And then I ended up doing an MBA. I think the most important thing is to be able to see the big picture, not just the details. Like academia and scientists, they work in specific problems, little problems, and they don't see the big picture. And since I was young, I was able to see the big picture, independent on the area that I was in. So I think that's one interesting point to say.
Yeah, really it is. And it leads to my next question really because you're bilingual, you're a Portuguese native speaker and obviously your English is excellent. As a PhD with extensive experience in industry, you've often had to be like a linguistic bridge, if you will. I don't mean between Portuguese and English, but between scientific and technical folks and business development executives who may not actually have scientific training. So, how are you able to do this translation so effectively? Is there a mindset, specific techniques that you bring to the table when you're serving as a bridge for communication, again, between the scientific folks and the non scientific folks in industry?
Yeah, science communication is something that is very difficult to do, especially in the academic labs. So since the beginning, when I started my PhD and then postdoc, and then I went to Northwestern, I was able to translate, so to speak, what I was doing in understandable language for people that is not in science, right? So the same thing happens in the enterprises, or I would say companies. So you are dealing with a problem, and then you can talk to somebody that is not from that segment in a way that people understand. So I have this way of doing metaphors and explaining in a way that people understands. And I think science communication is something really important that happened a lot, a lot of fake news, by the way, but with COVID-19 and the pandemic, a lot of people started to understand, especially virology, and they got interested in research. One thing that I try to do, like I said, is talk in a way that people can understand very complex systems and languages. And like a cultural thing also can be applied in trying to get the complex systems or whatever you're working, the problem that you are trying to solve, or the thing that you are trying to understand, translate this into something simple that people can understand.
Yeah, for sure. And as we're talking, it's end of January 2023. I've done more than 200 episodes now of the podcast. And my hypothesis at this point, with respect to the ability to be an effective science communicator, is that people who are bilingual with respect to actual languages like English, Portuguese, Spanish, whatever it happens to be, are particularly strong in science communication. And I wonder if you think being a bilingual scientist with Portuguese and English has helped you in your science communication or not.
Yes, I speak two languages, Portuguese, and a little bit of Spanish. My wife knows better than me, but a little bit of Italian because I'm an Italian citizen. So yes, I think you're right. Maybe if you do a deep research on that, it's going to give you answers. I completely agree. Yes.
Let me ask you this also. What are some of the common pitfalls? As someone who spent a lot of time in research labs, you've seen scientists trying, or maybe not trying that hard, depending on who they are, but just you've observed scientists falling into certain, let's say, communication traps when they communicate their work to business audiences or the public. What are some of these common pitfalls that listeners should be on the lookout for and avoid in their own science communication?
That's a good question. I think the research lab, the principal investigators, the PIs, they are so focused in their own work that they forget on how to tell what they are doing and the importance of it to the world, right? We saw with the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci in the US being able to talk to the public in a way that people can understand what's going on and avoid this, avoid that. So I think the pitfalls, and especially in general, when you are very technical in the scientific part, you don't know anything about finances, you don't have any business acumen. So generally speaking, the business part, or I would say the project management per se in the labs is not well used and it is scarce, right? So I think that's one thing that lab researchers and leaders in the fields, they have to learn on the side or that probably somehow to do project management. I think it's very important to deal with finances, to deal with people, because you are dealing with people in general, right? Just like postdocs, PhD. So I think that's the main thing that happens in the lab. They do very well the technical part, but the administration is bad.
Shifting gears here a little bit to the work that you're doing in data science, because data science is very popular. It's a hot field. Many listeners are interested in the industry and are operating and working in the industry right now. You're a self-described data science enthusiast, and many listeners I know would be interested to hear you talk about how you found your own way into data science, and maybe you could suggest ways for listeners who have such an interest on how they might break into the field.
I think I got interested because during the time frame that I co-founded the company that was sold, we dealt a lot with healthcare IT, developed a platform that was online to identify rare genetic diseases. So I got really interested and I saw that this area, which we know now, data science, applied intelligence, AI, and everything that is around it, is getting a lot of traction. Nobody deals with so many data points that you use solutions, pipelines. You have to use a lot of AI. So early on, we are talking 2010, I got interested and I learned by myself. I did a lot of online course. I learned on the go when dealing with very technical people in the company that I co-founded at Apple, at Accenture. And I try to do the bridge between the technical side of it, the data science and the engineering, the coding part, and the go-to market. So how you can translate something that is being developed and can become a product or a solution. So yes, it's not I don't have any degree, but I did a lot of online courses, which is something that is usual nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big believer in online courses. I have one of my own, how to effectively communicate your science to any audience. I want to now ask you about this exciting new role that you have with Modak, your current role at the data science company Modak. I'd like to have you talk about how long how long Modak's been around, what's its mission, some back
Yeah,
on
sure.
the company, and then how are you hoping to help accelerate its growth?
Kodak is a company that it's in the data science space, but they are offering something that the market doesn't have yet. So which is something called data architecture for the whole pipeline of analytics and visualization. So just to explain a little bit to the listeners. So when you are grabbing information to do data science or apply intelligence, you grab several types of data, unstructured, structured, semi-structured. You get images, you get numbers, you get language. So you get written stuff. So you get data in general, but the main important part is how do you deal with all of this complexity, right? So they developed something really interesting, the company and their years and ex-founders that can deal with this. That is something called data fabric. It can make it faster to ingest the data. They can make the data we call data lake. Imagine a lake with a lot of stuff. So they can standardize the data lake. All of the data will be easy to access. So we are talking speed. We are talking lower cost for the companies that are getting the solution. So I think Modak is one player in the whole game that can offer this specific solution to accelerate the data engineering space, to grab the data, structure it, and then we call it data ingestion, data aggregation, the data fabric, the data lakes, using cloud or on-premises servers. And then we have customers in the life sciences space that are very happy with what they are doing. So I think that their mission is to be a big player in accelerating this whole data ingestion because time is money, right? And lower the cost of doing all of that in a way that we call it low code, no code. So it's easy for anybody to access in a dashboard whatever is going on with the data. When you are moving from the data cloud or anywhere the data is sitting to the data fabric, from the data lake to the data fabric, and then moving in the pipeline so you can get the questions and visualize it in the end.
Really interesting. Of course, we're going to have a link to the company website in the show notes that accompany this episode. Fabricio, as we wrap up, we're talking in January of 2023, as I said earlier, AI and machine learning are becoming more commonly used and understood to a degree by the general public, certainly more than, say, a year ago, at least in the US. Well, looking ahead to the rest of the year in front of us, and maybe beyond too, maybe out this year and then 5 years or so in front of us, do you have any predictions regarding AI and machine learning that you'd like to share?
Yes, there's a lot going on. First of all, about continuing talking about Modak, I think what they are doing is something that is very important. Grab all of this information that is unstructured and make it very structured data architecture in terms of fabric, and then make it easy to the next steps in the pipeline to analyze. One point that I want to say is democratization of all of that. So people with no skills in coding, like I said, low code, no code, can access this. It doesn't need to be a software engineer, coder, or even a person dealing with computers. They have a dashboard. They can drag things along and outside and inside. It's becoming more and more affordable and easier for general people to get those tools in their hands. So that's why I think it's important. We can see now AI, DeepMind from Google, GTP was just got an investment from Microsoft. So there's a big thing happening using AI, applied intelligence. DeepMind was used to get the structures of all of the proteins from the human genome and see how they are. That's important for compounds and drug development when you're talking about life sciences. And ChatGTP is a natural language processing tool that learns from its web and can write things by itself. So I use it already. I tested. It's becoming really interesting because from what I heard, they're going to be able to describe an image, and ChatGTP is going to design the image and vice versa. Getting the image, it can make the description of it. So yeah, we are living in a very interesting time. So I think data science is, like I said in the beginning, is very empowering. And I think for everybody out there that is thinking about future career, even in academia, you don't need to learn how to code, but learn data science being in the back end, which is the coding, or the front end, design, how to make visualization better, statistics, maybe mathematics. So I think it's very important to learn those things. Before I finish, I wanted to thank, well, we have a very nice president at Modak. His name is Bas. He is based in the US. The company is global, just so you know. We have offices in Brazil, in South America, in the US, India, Dubai, all over the world. And I think what those guys are doing, and right now I'm almost 2 months with the company, they have a culture that is very nice. And anybody interested, the company is growing. I think they have an awesome solution.
Excellent. And the information about how to learn more about Modak and potentially take a look at open positions will be in the show notes for the episode. Fabricio Costa, you are always on the move. You've got an amazing skill set and so many interesting, diverse experiences. Thanks for taking time to be on the show and to share with listeners all about your journey and specifics about the work you're doing now and how they might get involved as well in data science and learn from your career trajectory.
It was a pleasure, Mark. Thank you for opening this door for us to speak about the things that we are doing. We have been talking for a while and really need to thank you for all of that.
Sure, you're welcome. Feelings mutual. And listeners, thank you for being here on this episode of When Science Speaks. And I hope you'll be back next time for the next episode of When Science Speaks.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe. Check us out on the web at whensciencespeaks.com, and we'll see you next time.